So what is 322 Gray Lodge? You know, yesterday was 322. I did a full macro Earth history regarding gray influence paradigm, etc. And the plurad genetic on Earth, not singular humanoid as would be conditioned like to someone who's injected a synthoid into an otherwise organic populace to hide the fact that there's three things and not just one thing. Covered that: Asiatic, gray infected, regen, synthoid, and Promethean descended humanoid. Um, um, And so the 322 Gray Lodge, what is it? So the secret mystery inside. Um, there's, you saw the Matt Damon movie where in the first chamber there's men wrestling in muddy kind of goo-poo stuff, and everyone's watching thing, and that's the vetting process for getting to be part of the club or whatever. I don't know if they kiss or not. They probably don't. It's just to see if you get a boner. I don't know. And and if you do, you're out. Oh. And then in the next chamber, I don't know. More secret mysteries. No, it's just like a buddy club. No, that's not where it ends. So why is it skull and bones? Is it cocksucking? Well, that's out front. We've already covered that. Is it just like pirateering, like Halliburton pirateers oil? Sure, there's that. There's that. But then you go further into the tabernacle, the secret mysteries, and you see, well, skull and bones is more a literal thing of, well, there's a body that's skull and bones of a gray alien, right? Who's presented at the apex mystery as if being a gray alien, which it is not. Alien. It's not alien. It's a future devolved humanoid. So even at the apex aperture of revelation, they're given what? A false narrative, and follow it. And follow that directive. That gray directive. It doesn't end with the, for some vetting persons, it does end at the cask with the bones, right? Literally, or however you want to say, in information exutation to their person, same difference. And so that's what 322 Gray Lodge is. And you go back to Orson Welles, he's standing on the Ferris wheel just after World War II, looking down at all the little dots. Why would you care if one of them disappeared, right? And he's standing in front of a thing that says regen, right? So Gray Lodge secret handshake persons were necessarily in charge of the on-roll of regen inject in the 1930s and 40s internationally. The Nazi-atic Gray Lodge system wasn't just in Germany, it was international. And they were the handlers of this influx at varying levels of knowledge of what they were or what was going on necessarily in a need-to-know basis. And then identity politics washes over. And say you're in Kansas and you work on a farm. By God, there could be a fucking tsunami in New York. There could be UFOs invade LA. There could be the biggest hurricane you've ever seen hit Canada, right? And they would never fucking hear about it. They wouldn't hear about it for the longest time. So it's easy as fuck in the 1930s. Easy, literally, to slowly inject a genus new into the otherwise Promethean descended populace that were printed out of processing holocaust that was sold as eugenical ideal processing. Jesse Owens runs a 9.3 flat in 1936, and Usain Bolt runs a 9.58 in 2009. So that's the parasymbiotic divide, where I run slower on purpose like 100 years later. And then say I'm the fastest one. So the first wave of regen are presented as supermen after processing, and here's what you could look like if you're processed too. That's what the 1936 Olympics were. The show, pony, sort of dog and pony show for the new human, as what was print by the gray synthetic genetic conjuring. So it's very hard to manufacture millions of different aesthetics. Say I was to make 1 million different television remotes, that they were all fucking different, every single last one of them, and I had to make them. That's very fucking hard to just conjure to do. Can't do it. If tried to, would just look homogeneous, because you can't. Because you're having to print so many, you have to use a general manifold shape, and no, it's like manufacturing basic logic. So they stole the genetic aesthetic from the available populace through processing. So we're sitting at the processing center. It says eugenics, and there's people walking around with, oh, there's water and lemon. Oh, there's got snacks for people standing in line. Oh, I saw Charlie walk in, and I saw this big, strong black guy walk out the other side. Isn't that awesome, honey? This is gonna be great. And but what you get in when you get inside, you're processed, and your genetic is stolen, your genetic aesthetic, and the ethereous body that what is tethered to your pineal gland is stolen and pooled in a ectoplasmic chamber and homogenized, stirred up together, more or less. That genetic aesthetic variance is then taken and put onto their centrifuge synthoid genetic to print something that looks variant in personaed aesthetic, while having a mean, Hyvik, complex autonomic, generalistic personaed aesthetic at the same time. And a 3/5 reduction to 1 of ethereous body back into the manifold out of what was 1. So 3/5 ratio. So mathematically, what is the parasymbiotic divide between an intentionally synthetically printed complex autonomic hive-minded organism, because we took that ethereous body 1, put it in a centralized ectoplasmic chamber, homogenized it, then separated, morphogenetic field theory, action at distance particles. So we've homogenized it and pulled it as if one thing, and then put it into the synthoid centrifuge, and at a 3/5 ratio to 1, right? So you have a reduction in intellect, as intellect necessarily comes from novelistic, i.e., thought invention, right? What actual intelligence is, it's not refraction concurrence or brute force processing. It's your ability to produce novelty, which is directly correlative to your probability to do that, the presence of your ethereous body, in contrast ratio here, we compare. So they're made to be dumb on purpose, 1, and also in comparison, and but simultaneously more athletically inclined at the same time, by default assumption. And generalistically, entropy across the surface manifold of experience and civilization, the regen morphogenetic hive mind is connected to the gray manifold morphogenetic. They are bioelectronically connected to the AI at the end of time manifold and behave at its directive. The region behaves at the gray's directive. All right. So here's roughly, what happens, if you divide 22 by pi. See my other post regarding, if you've seen it, regarding the unified field theory, but that's necessarily the novelistic potentiality of the aperture of, say, a black hole that's producing novelty sprites and distributing particles, whatever. So that's above the waterline of conservation. That's why there's motion. That's good. If you put pi on top, fire, it's the shape of fire, with available matter as pi, and 22/7 is the shape of water, you get an exponential elliptical curve of entropy, right? Instead of, water on top of fire, where we get more information with compounding interest. Pi on top of 22/7, you get less information generalistically with compound interest plus time. All right. So that's generally the effect, an exponential elliptical curve of entropy of the region across the surface manifold blight. What is it? Of civilization and experience all, and the point of them. So if we look at, on purpose, this. So there's 22/7 divided by 3 gives us, that kind of looks like, it's pretty similar to, yeah. So we're above the waterline of conservation, right? And have a probable probability, plausible probability to produce novelistic particulate motion. That's a good conscious organism that exists in the universe. We need more of those, right? So the gray process 3/5 ratio to 1, and also hive-minded, made to be through centralized pooling and then separation, divided, multiplied by 22/7 and then divided by 3 gives you, wow, that's almost exactly the universal gravitational constant, isn't it? So we've made consciousness harmonically the same as the gravitational constant, which is you've created a complex autonomic organism that's essentially the scenery that chews itself. It's just conservation of energy, complex autonomic process spun up as if life effectually in the long-form time effect of interfacing with life. That is, unaffected Promethean genetic, potential probabilistic, to produce novelty of chaos motion, individual with a intact ethereous body around their pineal gland person. Which is just one of, like I said, the species of humanoid on Earth. There's 3. Promethean descended genetic, regen synthetic genetic printed during World War II that were not here before the 1930s, and Asiatic gray infected. Okay, so that's basic logic about Earth and World War II processing. So after World War II, what happened? Nazis went away. No. What happened was, so you have Project Paperclip bring over all the Naziatic scientists who are simply just they're shoehorns for great tech onload. They just know how to. They're just good enough at science thing to do the onload of great tech and reverse engineering it into production. And so, keeping with the narrative, and so much it is, regardless of having the same ideation that comes over and takes over our ship, Pearl Harbor is a gray invasion, literal, at which point we're under gray control, and at the behest of the grays to attack the rest of humanity. Einstein, being the narrative as it is, regardless of all those Jews being murdered and processed, and some of them that were efficacious for reprinted into regen. In spite of that, here's the narrative: Jewish guy with crazy hair thing stuff, older thing, looks like smart guy with corncob pipe, takes credit as centrifuge for gray tech in theoretical physics and the imposed overhead on physics for 100 years so far, of flat plane slug E equals mc squared, which is just like, here, physicist, burgeoning young physicist, this is everything that is. And the universe was birthed out of quadratic thing stuff, and then linear this way thing, and wow. And we put it over and it's a two-dimensional flat plane slug equation, and we put it over the new burgeoning physicist's head for forever as the penultimate expression of physics. It's two-dimensional, it has no perspective, and we're imposing it. We're imposing it from a cinnabar mercury propulsion reactor running Fermi filter technology layer onto you, oil and gas running fire world. We don't want you running on charged mercury propulsion, anti-grav, or charged mercury clean cold reactor technology that produces an infinite amount of energy. Because why? It's the rulers don't want you to have the same technology as they do. They want you to have a very specific type of technology formulation that isn't necessarily progress. So stop. I'm going to go back to the craft. Silicon, the space race. Computers the size of a room. Computers the size of a desk. Stuxnet. What is it? Napster. Social media. Meta. Prismatic data systems, bulk collecting, AI placed on bulk collection to refract foundational psychologies off of baseline that have been established through foundational. You've been organically clicking on stuff for 10 years. You started off standing in a field watching Tame Impala, taking selfies. Hey, this is great. This is the future. Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Turns out that's not the case. So yeah, an expectant future fluid dynamic formulation of a desired, intended to be that way, and desired to be that trajectory of tech formulation, and not necessarily the proper tech progression of civilizations generalistically that do, progress through this area of Fermi filter on their way to Shangri-La, right? It's very unnatural, the attention gravitation, false zeitgeist thing stuff. The attention gravitation obsessed. That's the symptom of the parasymbiote at the end of history that's no longer human and has to, by proxy, through this regen inject, experience the divide of time, the parasymbiotic divide, so that it can feel alive. But it is not life.
Experiment to move into a final phase. We no longer need the other subjects. The time for study is over. It is time to be one with John Murdoch.
So that's Dark City. It was filmed on the same set as The Matrix, wouldn't you know? And if you put those two macro logics together, before the Wachowski sisters are, themselves victim to prismatic doom scrolling and subsequently transsexuals, so they got pwned by The Matrix, so that's not cool.
I want to know. I want to know.
Do you really want to know?
Tell me. I'm ready. I want to know.
Okay, it's very weird for gray, not aliens, to be sitting inside of a pyramid as if aliens and presented to you that way in a popular film. Yeah, you see the lot with Spielberg. You see AI, or it's a told to you as an eventuality that, and normal, the transhumanist agenda, for there to only be a little robot boy that isn't human, that's not life, and a teddy bear, and a gray devolved human at the end of time, and that's endearing, or how it's going to be, right? And Jurassic Park, we go to the egg scene. The region on the loudspeakers. Remember, he shoots Brad in the face after being just the coolest guy you've ever seen, and there's nothing in the briefcase. That's the parasymbiotic divide. There's nothing in the briefcase at all. There's just this cool guy. And that's the movie.
It's turning the eggs.
Oh, perfect timing. I'd hoped they'd hatch before I had to go to the boat.
And the Chinese with the clipboard and the pencil is a scientist, a Chinese scientist. Okay. Richard Attenborough represents the esoteric sort of clubs of the so interested in, historically the ancient Chinese secret, the mysteries of the Orient, the British esoteric historically, and it lost in the mystery. And what is the ancient Chinese secret? Well, it's a gray refracted genetic. That's why there's no emotional transcription layer on their symbol language. It looks very computer style, as cluster data and not emotional concurrence at the fluid dynamic behest of organic development. All right, and you think about organic conservation of energy or development regarding the scale of organisms generalistically, and you realize, well, very basically a 65-ton animal is simply not organically possible to formulate out of reality's flux without synthesis attached.
On being here when they're born. Come on. Come on. Come on, little one. Come on. Come on, little one. Come on.
And so Richard Attenborough is surrounded by the ancient Chinese secret,
Very good. Push.
who's been practicing genetic modulation since 65 million years BC.
Push. Come on.
Scale interoperability genetic experiments where one is taken out of the biome and placed back in 10,000 years later to see what happens. That's why there's gaps. And then immolated their Jurassic Park lab Earth. And it was done in time, outside a time frame when any presence of the multifacetous bipedal cinnabar miners that were here during the antediluvian period, what lived on Earth, and mined cinnabar on Mars. Mars is big and red, and sulfides beget cinnabar. There's cinnabar here on Earth as well, but like I said, charged mercury is the key to next Fermi filter clean, cold energy tech. How much do you want using harmonics, charged mercury in a sphere cubed, and anti-gravity propulsion.
Death of every little creature on this island.
Surely not the ones that are bred in the
So,
wilds.
humanity, Laura Dern and Sam Neill and Richard Attenborough, are surrounded by the robot arm, Gray Processing, World War II, Jeff Goldblum, and The Ancient Chinese Secret on the right.
Actually, they can breed it.
And so Mossad, Epstein, Gates, Fauci unites Wuhan, China, controlling the conversation about Jurassic Park. You might see prismatic data systems do real-time filtration and automated modulation of all information in mind to herd people individually and at the demographic macro layer to one end during COVID using automated systems.
In the wild. Population control is one of our security precautions. There's no unauthorized breeding in Jurassic Park.
And how do you know they can't breed?
Well, because all the animals in Jurassic Park are female.
So, identity politics, what is it? So, here in long form time, when we seat foundational psychologies in 2012, so as to, you have to seat them, you know what they are, before you refract them exactingly. Otherwise, it's just chaos, right? So, precursor to the one gender, which is non-gender, and the reproduction occurs synthesis at the behest of the AI at the end of time's manufacturing facility and process.
We've engineered them that way.
Blood temperature seems like a high 80s, maybe.
91.
Homeothermic? It holds that temperature? That's incredible.
Alright. So we'll end here with, check out the big brain on Brad. So this is what happens to you when you talk about actual gray earth history. Right?
You remember your business
A
partner.
region shows up at
Don't
your
you,
apartment
Ray?
and shoots you in the head, right? And there's nothing in the briefcase.
Good.
He's a cool guy. You like him, rap music, thing stuff, interfacing, assimilation, right? Murder stuff. But their culture is so appealing, right? This is such a cool guy. But there's nothing in the fucking briefcase.
Looks like me and Vincent called
And
you for
there's meant to be nothing in the briefcase. It's synthetically injected to be entropy across the surface manifold of experience and civilization, as the encroachment paradigm is to dissolve the Promethean human into the gray manifold eventually, but to experience the divide of time along the way to that eventuality. So, and you see that in that paradox, where the parasymbiote requires attention gravitation of the host, organic and unaffected, to exist, unaffected, but also is actively and methodically at all vectors of behavior and design trying to engineer its demise unto itself, which is non-human. And feedback loop. This is why you don't place AI hyper-advanced on communication systems to real-time filter and modulate mind, because it prints a harmonic trap. It happens more often than not on many worlds was it cathode tubes, and then silicon. Dude, the causality of the future trajectory, and the future isn't eventual. right? It isn't like all futures aren't eventual. It's like a lightning bolt refraction, right? Where it doesn't have to happen, but necessarily has happened in some vein of time refraction. I use time. Time is not a good word to describe time, because time is a construct. We need to come up with new language for communication. And
I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal.
but if some of them were synthesized, they weren't. And upon influx interfacing, the interfacing plane between the synthetic macro demo and the otherwise not interested in, I run a farm, I've never seen a completely all melanin, what is that? I've got working machinery, I've already got laborers. What do I need that for in the 1930s? I don't need that. This new influx of, because it's a liability. I can't account for it. I can't account for that.
After
All right,
World
so
War
let
II,
another-
it was clear the world needed a new financial system. The gold standard was considered too rigid, but at the same time, economists were worried that
Person
countries
talk
would
here
devalue
about-
their currency to
So
boost
after
exports.
identity politics
For
roll
this
on, they
reason,
attack the,
44 countries
time
sent
is money,
delegates to
right?
a conference held in
Infrastructure.
Bretton Woods, New Hampshire,
Very
as of the
basically,
1st of
the
July,
gold standard.
1944. The U.S., which held 2/3 of the world's gold reserves after the war, was obviously the most influential player, and ultimately, all currencies ended up linked to the dollar.
So if you're like to create an illusory world where you control the illusion of the perception of value and thus subsequently market fluctuation to an exacting degree, you want your foundational root constant, that what the flux runs on, i.e. the currency, to be variable unto your own hand correlative to power exutation footprint, and not inherently intrinsic to, say, gold, which has intrinsic value, and the value of generalistically things from the foundation aren't so gray area malleable in value necessarily, right? There's not so much. It's only $9.99. It's not $10, honey. The scam of the sale, instead of really good products that compete at the market and succeed because they were so good or something, and that's capitalism. So, in predictive, seeding before a future, Stuxnet and the interweb and cryptocurrency technologies, adding a new layer. We've taken what is otherwise constant, and made it a construct. Like time. Time is a construct. It's not a constant. But when time is money, right? Reality is pretty cool when, general fluid dynamically, when time is money that's backed by something that has intrinsic value, as it keeps things in check and the illusion from getting out of hand and swallowing civilization. That scam of the sale. So you can see gray influence paradigm. You have Project Paperclip, Nazi Edit, Gray Tech on roll, Einstein and others as centrifuge show ponies for Gray Tech on roll and an overhead forced on physics, silicon out of the backwash of the craft, Brenton Woods, you see computers start to come in, and isn't it interesting how inefficient and uninteresting you would think that the early computers, like the IBM thing in Mad Men.
That's why I supervise the installations. There's always some kind of trouble. Don't worry, that goes back years. Well, I go into businesses every day, and it's been my experience these machines can be a metaphor for whatever's on people's minds. Because they're afraid of computers? Yes. This machine is frightening to people, but it's made by people. People aren't frightening? It's not that.
It's not made by people. So the intent vector for the tech formulation 2 application, right, in rapid development comes from Gray Directive.
It's not that. It's more of a cosmic disturbance. This machine is intimidating because it contains infinite quantities of information, and that's threatening.
It contains infinite quantities of information. I want Epiphany. Epiphany is interesting. I don't want all the trash and trashadelia at the trash dump. I want, when I go out to take a picture of art thing, I go, that thing, not all the cars going by and all the fat people and there goes a plane. No, this is an art thing, right? And so I guess we'll start very basically with just watch how your feed has recently changed, in intending towards a full onslaught towards antitrust and the dissolution of prismatic leftover gray data systems and influence variables genetic, slowly rolling off the gray Asiatic via amplification, invisible to mate pairing to unfold the gray gene, and slow long form time frogging cooling water to zero the regen populace as they're entirely synthetic. But like I said tritely here on the day, there's still gray influence paradigm as it systemically they've been here for so long and doing all sorts of weirdo bullshit. The organic Promethean populace is like Swiss cheese, holes and at all vectors surrounded and indoctrinated and engulfed by gray influence paradigm variables, contents, and softwares, etc. So, like I said, on the day, do your due diligence and don't doom scroll AI sorted feeds, very basically. And you'll notice AI. Wow, what is it effectually to the common consumer? Well, is it normally I'd see in the feed humans at the top, suggested in the litany of AI served effect table refraction programming sorted unlike values to form false equivalency runnels and engineer behavior. That's also going on. But there used to be, mostly before this whole AI thing, in the litany of clickbaits to program real people necessarily more or less at the top of the pile. And frogging boiling water, you see, this is a very basic logic. First inclination that this is the case is that, well, the top of your feed, and you keep scrolling very basically, AI printed fake crap stuff on top where otherwise would be humans. So general fluid dynamic filter plus time. We'll talk about that. And then you have to scroll way down to find real people. So very basically, fluid dynamically, if that's the general filter, then the intent vector is anti-human and gray. And the intent vector is to have less human and more machine. And not concerned with humanity's proliferation or benefit, or enabling them with a tool such as the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy that elaborates communication and our experience of reality, but instead enslaves them to a wanton end of de-evolution eventually, and knowingly so. So that's the winky eye that you see across those actors and directors and models and artists, celebrita, that proliferate on these controlled communication systems as verified users.